I don't think anyone believes me, but I know what I saw. It started like any other semester. I was a senior at Oakwood University, a small school tucked away in the middle of nowhere. It wasn't anything special. Classes were average, the professors just doing their jobs. But something about this semester felt different. There was a shift in the air, like the university itself was holding its breath. It was the first week of classes when I got assigned to a new course. History 406, Theories of the Unseen. It was a required elective, something to round out my humanities credits. Honestly, I didn't even know what the course was about, but I figured it would be easy enough. The professor was new, Dr. Ambrose, a man with thin, wiry glasses and a voice that always seemed to hover just below a whisper. He never raised it, but somehow it always carried a constant undertone of something unsettling. On the first day, he didn't give a lecture. Instead, he handed out a syllabus and gave us one strange instruction. There will be a final assignment. It's non-negotiable. Be ready. And remember, the real lesson is not what you see, but what you don't see. The phrase lingered with me. It felt like a warning. I tried to push it from my mind, but over the next few weeks, things got weird. The class was small, just 10 of us, which was odd for a senior-level course. We met once a week in an old, windowless classroom in the basement of the history building. The air always smelled musty, like the place hadn't been used in years. And there was always this constant hum in the background, like an electrical buzz that never went away. One night, about a month into the semester, something happened that I'll never forget. It was after class, around 9:30 p.m. I was packing up my things when Dr. Ambrose stopped by my desk. He didn't smile, didn't speak at first, just stared at me through those thin glasses. It felt like he was measuring me, like I was the subject of some kind of experiment. He leaned in, his voice so quiet I could barely hear it. "You're one of the curious ones, aren't you?" I just nodded, not sure what he meant, but afraid to ask. "You'll be the one to see it. But remember, you can never unsee it." Before I could respond, he turned and walked out of the room, leaving me in an uncomfortable silence. I should have left it at that, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off with him. He wasn't just a weird professor. There was something darker in him, something that I couldn't quite understand. But my curiosity got the better of me. I needed to know what he meant by seeing it. The next week, Dr. Ambrose gave us an unusual assignment. It was simple. We had to meet him in the classroom alone at midnight. The other students were confused, but I wasn't. I had already made up my mind. I was going to find out what he was talking about, what seeing it meant. So that night, I found myself outside the classroom again, the hallway quiet, the lights flickering like they were about to go out. It felt like the building was waiting for something. When I entered the room, the first thing I noticed was how much darker it felt. The light from the overhead bulbs flickered sporadically, casting long, warped shadows against the walls. The classroom was completely empty, except for Dr. Ambrose, who was standing by the front desk, his back to me. He didn't turn around when I walked in. Instead, he gestured toward one of the desks in the back and said in that same low voice, "Sit. The lesson is about to begin." I did as he said, though every instinct in my body told me to turn around and leave. Something was wrong. The air felt too still. And then, the lights flickered out entirely. It was pitch black. I heard a sharp, quick intake of breath, not from me, but from behind me. I turned my head toward the sound, but all I could see was the faint outline of Dr. Ambrose's silhouette in the dark. And then there was a sound, A scraping noise, like something dragging across the floor. It came from somewhere near the front of the room, close to where Dr. Ambrose stood. Suddenly, the lights blinked back on. But Dr. Ambrose was gone, and in his place, at the front of the classroom, was an old wooden mirror. It was huge, too large for the space, and it seemed out of place, like it didn't belong there. I stood, my heart racing, but I couldn't look away from the mirror. There was something about it, something wrong. And then I saw it. In the reflection, I wasn't alone. There was another person standing next to me. Someone I didn't recognize, a figure, shadowy and indistinct, standing just beyond my shoulder. Their face was blurred, their features distorted, but I could see their eyes. Empty. Hollow. My breath caught in my throat. The figure moved. I felt my own body freeze. My heart was hammering in my chest. The reflection didn't match my movements. The figure stayed still, staring at me. And in that moment, I knew. It wasn't me. The figure was someone. Something else. "You've seen it now," a voice whispered in the darkness. It was Dr. Ambrose, but it didn't sound like him. It sounded like it was coming from everywhere. I felt my stomach drop. What was this? What had I gotten myself into? I stumbled back from the mirror, my legs shaking. But I couldn't look away. The figure in the reflection was still there, staring at me, its eyes darker than anything I had ever seen. The longer I stood there, the more I felt its presence in my head. It wasn't just a reflection. It was alive. I tried to turn and leave, but the door wouldn't open. It was like it had sealed itself shut, trapping me inside. My breath was quick and shallow as I banged on the door, but no one came. The room felt colder, the air thicker. The reflection in the mirror shifted again. This time the figure smiled. It was a twisted, broken smile, a grin too wide to be natural. And it opened its mouth. The voice came again, louder this time, filling the entire room. "We are watching." I turned around, but no one was there. The classroom was silent, except for the soft hum in the background, that same unsettling buzz I had heard when I first entered. The figure in the mirror leaned closer, as if it were coming for me. I could feel the air around me shift, getting heavier. The room felt like it was closing in on me, suffocating me. "You've crossed the line," the voice continued, now just a whisper in my ear. "You've seen what you weren't meant to see. Now, you'll never escape it." I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The air was so thick now, I couldn't breathe. I collapsed to the floor, gasping for air, my vision starting to blur. The mirror's reflection seemed to pulse in and out of focus, and then I saw something else, something darker. Behind me, in the reflection, I saw Dr. Ambrose's face. His eyes were wide, his mouth open in a silent scream, his face twisted in agony, his skin peeling away in chunks. I blinked, and then I was alone in the classroom again. I don't know how long I lay on the floor, but when I finally opened my eyes, the room was normal again. The mirror was gone, replaced by a blackboard. The lights were on. The door was open. But I couldn't move. My body felt numb, as though it had been drained of life. I stood shakily and stumbled out of the classroom. The hallway was empty, the campus quiet, as if nothing had happened. But the feeling of something watching me never left. The hollow eyes of the figure, Dr. Ambrose's twisted grin, followed me everywhere. It wasn't over. I could still hear that voice, echoing in my mind. You can never unsee it. I never told anyone what happened. How could I? No one would believe me. How could I explain what I saw? The mirror was gone, but every night I see those eyes. hollow, empty, watching me. And sometimes, when I close my eyes, I hear that voice, still whispering, "You've crossed the line." And I know, it's only a matter of time before I'm pulled back. It was just supposed to be a routine assignment. It wasn't supposed to end like this. I should have known something was wrong the moment I received the email. It was a Monday, and I was sitting in my dorm room, trying to focus on the last of my assignments before graduation. The deadline for my final paper was coming up, and as much as I hated to admit it, I was scrambling to finish. The email came from Professor Turner, the instructor for my philosophy class. He was known for his dry humor, often sending out cryptic messages and quirky assignments. But this was different. This one felt too direct. No pleasantries, no lecture notes. Just one line. "Meet me after hours in room 213. You have an appointment with your grade." At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe some kind of a prank, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't. There was something about the way the message was worded, "appointment with your grade," that made my stomach turn. Was this some sort of final, personal evaluation? Was it really just about grades? I tried to dismiss it. My mind kept racing, but I told myself it was no big deal. I had 2 days until the deadline. I could use the extra help. Still, the thought gnawed at me. After dinner that night, I grabbed my jacket and headed toward the philosophy building. It was late, the campus quiet, and the air had that late fall chill to it. I didn't have much of a choice. I couldn't risk failing this class, not after everything. When I reached the hallway outside room 213, I froze. The door was slightly ajar, and the hallway was eerily silent. No sounds of late-night students, no chatter, just an uncomfortable stillness. I knocked lightly. The response came almost immediately. "Come in." I opened the door, and the dim light inside did little to reassure me. There was a strange, oppressive feeling hanging in the air, as if the room itself was holding its breath. It didn't look like a typical classroom. No desks, no chairs. Only a small, wooden pedestal in the middle of the room, and on top of it, a box. A strange, ominous box. I stepped inside cautiously, my shoes clicking against the hard floor. I expected Professor Turner to be somewhere in the room, but there was no sign of him. My heartbeat quickened. The silence felt suffocating. Where was he? I moved closer to the pedestal. My fingers twitched with nervousness. The box was made of dark wood, carved with symbols I didn't recognize. Some kind of ancient language, maybe. The carvings were delicate but odd, almost as if they were moving, shifting if you looked at them long enough. I felt a compulsion to open it. What if this was some kind of ritual? I shook my head, trying to clear the ridiculous thought from my mind, but I couldn't stop staring at it. My heart raced. There was something about the way the box seemed to hum in the still air, like it was waiting for something. Waiting for me. Before I could even second-guess myself, I reached out. The moment my fingers touched the box, the room felt colder. A sudden gust of wind swept through, though the windows were shut tight. A faint whisper filled the air, too quiet to understand. I hesitated, but I had already touched it. Something inside me urged me forward, and I slowly, almost reluctantly, lifted the lid. Inside, there was something unexpected. A thick, dark liquid swirling at the bottom of the box. It looked almost like ink, but alive, pulsing, changing. I recoiled for a moment, but my eyes kept returning to it. And then, there was something else. At the bottom of the liquid, something pale and twisted, A hand. A small, decaying hand, its fingers curled unnaturally, as if it had been submerged there for too long. I stumbled back, dropping the lid with a loud bang. My breath came out in short, panicked gasps. What the hell was that? Why was it in there? The whispers grew louder, more distinct. The voice sounded familiar. Touch it. I froze. The voice wasn't my own, but it sounded so close. And the worst part? I knew, somehow, that I had no choice. I had to touch it. I shouldn't have listened, but I did. I don't know why I did it. Maybe it was the desperation. Maybe it was the strange compulsion that had taken over my body, leaving my mind powerless to resist. I reached into the box. The liquid was colder than I could have imagined, and the moment my fingers brushed against the hand, everything went dark. The room around me blurred. The walls seemed to stretch and fold in on themselves. A high-pitched ringing filled my ears, growing louder and louder until it felt like my skull would crack. And then, nothing. I wasn't in the classroom anymore. I wasn't in the philosophy building. I was somewhere else, somewhere worse. When my vision returned, I was standing in the center of a room. The floor was covered in something sticky, like tar. The walls were cracked and decayed, but the worst part was the bodies. They were all around me, piled up in strange, unnatural positions. Their faces were pale, their eyes wide and unblinking, staring right at me. But they weren't lifeless. Number, they were moving. A soft moan escaped from one of them as it began to twitch. I backed away, my breath shallow. How was this possible? How could they be alive? That's when I saw him. Professor Turner stood in the center of the room, facing the pile of bodies. He was muttering something under his breath. As he turned to look at me, I saw his eyes, hollow black pits. "You shouldn't have come," he whispered. The truth was more terrifying than I could have ever imagined. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't move. Every muscle in my body felt frozen. The bodies in the room continued to twitch and groan. Some of them started to stand up, their joints cracking, their heads jerking unnaturally. "You're mine now," Professor Turner said, stepping closer. His voice was low, like he was speaking from somewhere deep beneath the earth. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. My body felt heavy, as though I was sinking into the floor. My mind was racing. There had to be a way out. There had to be something that could explain this. But deep down, I knew there was no escape. Turner took a step toward me, his smile widening, showing teeth that were too sharp, too unnatural. "You've joined my experiment," he said softly. "You'll never leave. None of us ever do." Suddenly, I felt a cold hand grasp mine. It wasn't Professor Turner's. It was the hand from the box. It was warm, pulsing with dark energy. My heart pounded in my chest as it slowly dragged me toward the center of the room. The walls were closing in. The bodies surrounded me, their eyes burning into me, as though they knew what was coming. I should have walked away. But I didn't. And now, I can never leave. The world tilted as the ground beneath me began to give way. I felt myself falling, spinning through endless darkness. My body was weightless, my mind unraveling. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in the classroom. But it wasn't the same. Everything felt wrong. The walls were crooked, the air was thicker. And there it was, room 213, the door. It was wide open, but I wasn't alone. I saw myself standing in the doorway, only it wasn't me. It was someone, something else. Someone with hollow eyes. My breath caught in my throat as I stepped forward. This time I couldn't stop myself. As I crossed the threshold, I understood. I had failed the exam. I've tried to warn them. I've tried to warn you, but no one believes me. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. I mean, we all knew this was the last semester, and things had been off at Waverley University for a while, but I never imagined it would come to this. Let me explain. I'm not some random student, okay? I've been here for 4 years. Waverley is my life. It's a small college, nestled away in the hills, and most of the buildings are old, almost ancient, really. Some of them are so old that the air smells of mildew and chalk dust no matter how often the janitors clean. There's always this feeling in the hallways, like something's waiting. You feel it in the silence, especially late at night. This particular semester, I was enrolled in Dr. Hayes's advanced literature course. Dr. Hayes was a legend, older, reclusive, and revered by everyone who'd ever taken his classes. Everyone said he was brilliant, eccentric, even terrifying at times. But what really got my attention was the strange rumor that followed him. No one who had ever taken his class had failed. Not a single person. Sounds nice, right? But there was a catch, as there always is. The final assignment in his class was unlike any other. Dr. Hayes didn't give tests, no papers, no midterms. You didn't even get a grade until the very end of the semester. But when you did, it wasn't a grade you'd expect. It was a choice. If you passed, you'd get your degree. Simple, right? But if you failed, well, that's when things got weird. You'd be taken off the roll. Your name would disappear from the roster. You'd no longer exist at Waverley. People would forget you. You wouldn't even show up in photos. You'd be erased. At first, it sounded absurd. Everyone in my class joked about it. Yeah, right, Doctor. Hayes is just trying to mess with us. But as the semester dragged on, I began to wonder if there was some twisted truth to it, especially when people I'd known for years started to disappear. It happened slowly at first. One by one, students I'd sat next to for lectures began to fade from the college. No one spoke about them anymore, not even professors. The strangest part? Their names didn't show up on any rosters or course schedules. It was as if they'd never been there at all, and no one questioned it. I tried to ignore it. But then something happened to me. Something that couldn't be ignored. It was a Tuesday night when Dr. Hayes called me into his office. I didn't think much of it at first. I had stayed after class to ask a question about the last reading, but instead of answering me, he said simply, "You've been chosen. Come to my office at midnight. I have something to show you." I thought it was just another one of his strange, cryptic ways of getting us to think about the material differently. After all, his lectures were always filled with haunting metaphors and philosophical musings. But when I walked down to his office that night, there was something different. I don't know how to describe it. It wasn't like the usual silence of the building. This time, the air felt thick, like the entire hallway was holding its breath. As I passed the other classrooms, I noticed they were dark, abandoned. Not a single person around. It was unnerving. Dr. Hayes's office door was cracked open. I knocked twice before entering. He was sitting at his desk, facing away from me, staring at the wall. His office was small, dimly lit by a desk lamp and filled with old books, some stacked high, some scattered across the floor. He didn't even acknowledge me as I walked in. I hesitated before sitting down in the chair across from his desk. For what felt like forever, neither of us spoke. The room was so still that even the hum of the overhead light felt like an intrusion. Finally, Dr. Hayes spoke in his quiet, deliberate way. "You want to know the truth, don't you?" I didn't know what to say. What truth? The weird rumors? The assignments? The disappearing students? "There's always a price to pay," he continued, his voice almost inaudible. "You'll have to pay it, too." I was about to ask him what he meant when I noticed something strange. His fingers, tightly curled around the edge of his desk, began to twitch. Not just twitching like a nervous habit, but something much more disturbing. His fingers jerked like they were moving against his will, as if something was controlling them. His head turned slowly toward me, and for the first time, I saw his eyes, empty, like hollow pits in his face. He smiled. "You've seen the disappearances, haven't you? The students? They were all mine, and soon you will be too. I won't give you a grade. I'll give you a choice." The words echoed in my mind. I wanted to run, but my legs felt like lead. I couldn't move. I was paralyzed by his gaze. Dr. Hayes stood up, his movement slow and deliberate, as if the space itself had grown heavier. The air around me seemed to close in, and I felt myself shrinking, becoming smaller and smaller, like I was being drawn into a void. "You will be given a choice at the end," he said, his voice now like a chant, a ritualistic mantra. "But not a choice you can make on your own. It's already been made for you. I just need you to accept it." He moved toward the back of his office, and I followed him with my eyes, but I couldn't move my body. He reached for a hidden drawer in the corner of his desk and pulled out a small, old-fashioned box. It was plain, but there was something unsettling about it. The wood was chipped, the metal hinges rusted. He opened the box slowly, revealing a small, crumpled piece of paper inside. Dr. Hayes unfolded the paper, and my breath caught in my throat as he handed it to me. The writing was scrawled in a hurried, jagged hand. It said only one thing: "I accept." I stared at it, confused. What did this mean? Was this the choice? Was this the thing I had to agree to? Dr. Hayes didn't explain. He simply stood there, waiting for me to respond. I took the paper, my fingers trembling, and felt a cold sensation seep through my skin as I held it. The paper was alive, vibrating slightly in my hand. "Choose." His voice rang in my head. "Choose." It wasn't just a question anymore. It was an order. I wanted to scream, to run, but the words from earlier were still swirling in my mind. "You'll never be remembered." Something deep within me snapped. I don't know why, but in that moment, it felt like the only option. I wrote the words, "I accept." As soon as the ink hit the page, the room seemed to collapse. The walls stretched and bent, warping in ways that didn't make sense. I felt my body lurch forward, my vision blurring. When it all stopped, I was no longer in Dr. Hayes' office. I wasn't in the university at all. I was in an endless void, a cold, empty place where the only thing I could hear was the sound of my own breath, thin and shallow. There was no light, no up, no down, just silence. And in the distance, I could hear something, someone calling my name. It was Dr. Hayes, but he wasn't saying my name the way I knew it. No, he was saying my name in a way I had never heard before. It sounded wrong, distorted. And as I looked around, I realized what had happened. I wasn't a student anymore. I was nothing. When they found me the next morning, I was still sitting in Dr. Hayes' office, but I wasn't there. I wasn't even in the world anymore. No one remembers me. Not the professor, not the students. No one even knows I was ever there. My name's gone from the records. My face is erased from photos. My friends don't even remember meeting me. But sometimes, when I walk through the hallways, I hear it. a faint whisper of my name, carried by the wind, and I know that Dr. Hayes is still watching, waiting. Because once you've made your choice, there's no turning back. You don't get to leave. Not ever.